mate. How are you?
All right, Dan. How's it going?
Do you know what?
Yeah.
You're looking really casual.
Mate, should we say?
Put your tracky bottoms on.
Tracky bees. Well, there is a reason why I'm so casual.
You power walked here.
Well, yeah. And also, did you not put any clothes on? Why are you...
I always stand up naked. This is the naked podcast. Oh, no, I forgot. This is behind the billboard.
Wrong room, mate. Well,
it must be next door. I'm a guest today.
There is a reason why I'm so casual, is that it's a remote podcast today, so we don't have to look super pucker.
Oh, right. I see.
Yeah, so
So you went full cash.
Yeah.
You know he's going to be on camera, right?
Yeah, I know, but kind of, if we just angle a thing, he's never going to see the tracky. Anyway, so everybody listen, I'm wearing the tracky bees. There's a few kind of random stains.
Bit of curry from last night on there. Oh no, a bit of...
the t-shirt says I heart Corfu.
Bit of whizzed up lentils and rice that you were drinking out of your...
You're not exactly looking that great self. I've got old t-shirt from bed.
Got my old t-shirt.
Right, so it's David
Kolbusz. DK.
Kolbusz. DK. Thank you, Peter Wardle. We weren't sure how to say his name, and actually I think if we just call him David. That'll be enough. So yeah, David Kolbusz at Orchard, New York. So David, just phenomenal figure, and not just in billboards, but the whole industry. Always followed his staff, just a brilliant character. From when he landed he was at Mother at first and BBH. He went back to Wyden's, I think, then he's come back. Droga 5.
It's going to be nice to talk about some US stuff as well, because having been there recently, I think there's some incredible work happening in New York, and new formats popping up. The US market is absolutely booming in terms of the media space, and certainly on the creative side, on our side, we've been we'll do more dollars and pounds this year for sure.
Well, that'd be great, because I presume he's in the heart of it. He's in Manhattan somewhere, so we'll get a good semblance of what's going on.
Cool. Should we dial him in?
Yes, I was going to say go downstairs, but that'll be a really long walk then, wouldn't it?
I'd be downstairs on the tube with Heathrow.
Here we go. David Kolbusz, Chief Creative Officer of Orchard, New York. Welcome to Behind the Billboard.
Thank you very much for having me.
We've been waiting a long time to have you on, David.
the last 10 minutes as well. Sorry for that.
Well, as Vanessa Williams once sang, you go and save the best for last. You are ending the podcast after mine, right?
This is the only finale we could possibly imagine.
This is like
the last
Christmas
behind the Billboard campaign.
So listen, thanks for joining us from the Big Apple. So for any of our listeners, David's joining us from New York, where I'm reliably informed it's quite cold. My daughter has just landed there. She's seeing her boyfriend over there. So if you could say hello to her, she's walking around Queens with a sign saying "Hello, David" at the moment. So
I will.
Yeah, so please give her a wave. How is life at Orchard? How are you? How is the agency?
It's very, very good. I'm surrounded by very talented, smart people, and we're committed to making work that we're very, very excited about, whilst trying to grow a business and having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, it's great. It looks like it. We were just saying, Dan and I were just laughing away at the Ocean Spray film again. I know you've probably talked about it shitloads, but honestly, when I play it to my wife and kids, it just makes us so happy. You've got to be so pleased with it.
I'm very pleased with it. It's become a regular staple of our household as well. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you always try and make things that you enjoy yourself, right? So you're absolutely out to entertain a target audience, but if you can amuse yourself in the interim, that's as a product of the end result, then that's a good thing. And we very pleased.
Yeah, they sort of try to reenact it with the heads sort of nearly falling off and the jiggly. I mean, I kind of we're not going to spend the whole time on this, obviously, but it's a drink, isn't it? Sorry, because I'm not really an Ocean Spray demographic bloke. It's an
ecosystem of products. They have a bunch of juices. But then, of course, they've got the two things they're most famous for are their juices and their cranberry sauce. So the jellied cranberry sauce is a staple of every home during this holiday season.
So, am I right in saying, because I'm not big on Thanksgiving, it's Thanksgiving today?
It is Thanksgiving today. We're speaking on Thanksgiving.
Oh my God.
We're
honoured. We would definitely have to end the series on this. You giving us your Thanksgiving.
Let me tell you, the way that I think of Thanksgiving is it's a great day. It's a great week, actually, to do all of the things that I have to do with England that I can't do. All the bureaucracy that I have to contend with. This is my dream week. So everything that I'm putting off that has to do with my life in the UK is getting accomplished this week because no one's doing it.
Yeah, because even people last night were probably going, in your country, going, what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing whole weekend? And we're all just going, yeah, it's another fucking wet Wednesday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I saw a good tweet this morning which said, to all my friends in America, happy Thanksgiving, and to everyone else around the world, happy reductive email day, because we're not getting bombarded with all the emails from the US, exactly as you said.
Exactly.
So a quick one about America, UK. So just had a little look at your career, and there seems to be a flip-flopping going on. So you're back now, back in the USA. You're a Canadian, obviously, but is this a kind of a witting approach to career world, UK, US? You know, are we...
It's very it stacks up with I think who I am as a person, restless and interested in lots of things. Not but no, it actually does happen to be. Well, also it's very representative actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, sorry, I didn't really consider. But I mean, I'm also I'm a very empathic person as well too.
Yes.
And the one thing I think you notice about the career, the back and forth. Anytime I've left an agency, I've had to put a C between me because just the thought of moving within a city and or even within a country and upsetting the people that I work with, because it's that thing where I've loved every job that I've had, even the top ones, and you're always leaving people that you care deeply about, and if you Well, I
was fascinated to see at Orchard because I remember an old mate of mine, Barney Robinson, there. So please give him my best. I don't know if he'll remember me and Adam. We're a quite irritating team.
Everyone and everything. So yes, he
but give him my best. I remember him saying to me very, very long time ago, there's a place in New York called the Meatpacking District. It's quite cool. You should go there. So Barney, always ahead of the curve as usual. So yeah, thanks.
So David, before we get into your work, and we've got some amazing work to look through today, we've got this regular feature called the Billboard at the end of my street. Did you manage to find one, and are you able to talk us through it? Can we see one from the window?
So that's what I was gonna, so I was gonna make it. I have so the thing that I was gonna do was I was gonna try and look out and actually see what the timely oh crap. They're taking it down.
It can be a really shit one. It can be any. It's just basically going to be the one that's there.
Yeah. Oh man, they've taken it down. Oh. It's going to change over. Wait. But what I've actually got for you, there is a little further down. It's actually I've got an amazing poster site which is at the end of the street. It's the backup. It's the one that I have to walk a little bit to. I can't see it from my window, but it is at the end of my street.
Okay.
And it's it's actually the best poster site because it's all like the stuff that I don't do but I love.
Yeah.
Which is like fashion and music.
Yeah.
So you get all the best designed gig posters and all the best fashion posters, fashion and luxury. And I've dipped my toe in the fashion and luxury waters before, and I love it. But and anything that I've done, it's never the celebrated stuff. Our industry never celebrates that stuff. But it's a Marc Jacobs Heaven.
Oh, okay. Lovely.
Billboard. And it's the two new ones. There's with because I don't know if you know much about the Heaven sub brand, but it's this capsule collection that he's created, which kind of celebrates and remixes ideas from the 90s, but in a way that is relevant for the present. Wow. And but they've gone and they've recreated very classic Pamela Anderson-esque layouts from the 90s, but with Pamela Anderson from the present. And visual feasts.
You know what? I watched something you described a Jonathan Glazer Flake commercial because
sure.
So you've sort of done that for the Marc Jacobs poster for us without actually seeing it. I'd love if you could send us a copy of that.
Yeah,
absolutely. I've taken photographs of it.
Okay,
it's something and actually there's a lovely. It's actually serendipity because the end of my street billboard is usually something a little more comfortable in our world.
Yeah, and
the one thing that never gets talked about enough, I believe, in our industry is fashion and luxury goods advertising, and it's celebrated in some circles, but we kind of dismiss it and like, oh, we're grumble. Where's the idea? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, and their history of just beautiful imagery. They are, as an industry, they are a huge investor in content and creative, and they just put out their, like you say, there's no depth of idea. It's just a beautiful image, and the idea is, you are all this beautiful, and that's as far as they go, right? But every time it's slightly different.
Interesting, subversive, very avant-garde concepts, and it's like they are the fashion, the beauty and fashion industry right now, as far as I'm concerned, are doing some of the best outdoor in our industry, in the hitting the sites.
And so obviously, as you've listened to on our podcast before, we kind of use this segment to kind of talk about it more in general terms, what's happening in the outdoor industry, what's happening on billboards. And obviously, you're in outdoor mecca there in New York. You are bombarded with ad units in the out of home space. Give us a sense of the New York state of business in terms of creative in the outdoor space.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the entire industry has lurched towards the case study video in general. So I think traditional ideas, traditional in air quotes, being ideas that have a solid bedrock conceptual foundation and are rooted in communicating a sense of or inspiring a sense of yearning in consumers based on intellectual trickery, have sort of fallen by the wayside in favor of, for better or for worse, a clever idea that can get generate an enormous amount of PR coverage, but is a little bit more tricky and eschews some of the classic tenets of advertising, like great copywriting or great art direction. But interestingly, one of the places where it feels like there's still a lot of great work, I think, is an outdoor, but not classic outdoor. So I don't think you get as much of that's a great poster anymore, that you can just look at it and it's beautiful and it's replicable and you'd hang it on a wall. But in terms of special builds and stunts, interestingly, I think where that's manifested itself best is in outdoor, because a lot of the case studies we watch nowadays are for things that never happened or events that were ephemeral in their execution and covered by a late night talk show and then forgotten forever. And
are you seeing that stuff on your social feeds as well? Are you seeing people sharing the interesting stuff?
Special builds for posters. Posters have benefited disproportionately from this movement that has hurt some of the other areas of our industry.
Yeah, just picking up on that, the posters or pieces of out of home being specifically made to talk to a wider audience through social is something we talk about all the time. Like I've seen so many posters I've never seen. I've just seen them, you might post one on your feed and I go, fuck, that's cool. I'm going to grab that and share it with my, and no one does that with a press ad. No one does that with a piece of digital, so posters do have this power. Like even my kids, I've got 2 teenage daughters, but if they see a cool thing, they'll take a photo of it. And that's where you want to be. I mean, I'm not saying everything needs to be a cool thing, but if you can put a camera on it and put it on Instagram, you're halfway there to sharing.
I've noticed a lot of posters that I really, really like recently, and what they frequently do now are they're arresting visuals,
right?
Light on concept or light on obvious concept, but arresting visuals. Yeah. Which is exactly what I'm talking. And it feels like in the more conventional sense, like I said, we're tiptoeing away from strong ideas, but there is some great image making out there.
Yeah.
And conventional advertisers, your packaged goods, your services, whatnot, a lot of their posters now are actually moving more towards, the good ones are moving more towards fashion and luxury goods,
and
evoking a feeling.
A question, kind of trying to bring it back to your career, and as we say, you put C's between your agencies as you leave them and depart for a new family in another country each time. What main differences you see in the work that you were obviously doing here versus the stuff we do in the US when it comes to outdoor? What are the main differences, do you think, between the outdoor media creative that you see in the different territories that you've worked in?
Well, historically or in the present?
Let's go in the present, because we're talking about that now. I'm sure there are many more historically.
Yeah. No, I guess because it's an interesting phenomenon, because I think globalization has had an effect on how English language markets. There's less difference now.
Okay,
it's interesting. When I was at Wyden Kennedy, New York, there was a greater difference between the two markets, and in the last, it's been 7.5 years or so, that gap has closed dramatically. And I've come back to New York expecting another world,
right?
But the London, New York markets are very, very similar.
That's quite interesting.
Like it was an actual shock to me because I was anticipating a difference more akin to what I'd experienced previously.
Yeah, that is interesting. I remember when I was a kid, I always loved the American attitude to write a line that was really savvy and smart. And I think we always used to think, we can't write ads like that, And then actually, I think we've caught up a bit over in the UK. But the attitude around sort of Nike posters and stuff like that was.
It's interesting. As you know, I've spent quite a bit of time in the US as well for work.
Yeah.
I think the main difference between the outdoor market in the US and the UK is there are two outdoor markets in the US.
Right.
There is the kind of the nationwide campaigns, the big brands, and they try and dominate all of the different, what they call DMAs, so all the different markets with their above the line message. But then there's this whole local market of out of home that's sold by the mom and pop run billboard, and they are sold to the local lawyer firms and the local hospitals and drug companies, and there's a massive difference between the creative that goes on these things, and I think that local market is responsible for, in terms of the media money, about 60% of that market is local market stuff. So there's an incredible amount of I wouldn't say disposable creative, but it's certainly stuff that it wouldn't hit a portfolio of the people that we've been interviewing on Behind the Billboard. There's this kind of stuff that's obviously been created by the marketing department at the lawyers. Sorry?
So we'll call it serviceable.
It's serviceable, absolutely. Yeah, and it's sold, and it'd be, Tucson-wide media plan, and it's a local ambulance chasing lawyer, and it's a picture. They're all kind of, it's formulaic, right? Big picture of Craig, who's the local lawyer, and it's him, arms crossed, I'll fight the cause, and his phone number. It's just like
sounds like an ironic David Kolbusz.
It's really interesting. And then there's the stuff that we see in New York and LA and the entertainment industry, and as you say, the fashion industry pumping out this incredible work. And you can drive down a highway in Tucson and you can see both of them next to each other.
That's interesting.
So we just don't have that in the UK. That local market stuff is less prevalent.
Yeah. So it's usually hand painted signs by elderly gentlemen in flat caps who walk out to the
film. I think the only equivalent that we probably had here in the UK is that local cinema advertising.
Yeah.
Do you remember
and all 50 yards from this cinema.
Yeah, the curry house at the end of the street.
Yeah.
And so let's take it on to let's do the historical thing now. Do you remember your very first billboard? Do you remember your first piece of work that was out there on the streets?
It will have been. It's a series of Taco Bell 6 sheets.
Okay, was that in Canada at TBWA Toronto?
That was from TBWA Toronto. Taco Bell was my first like the account, and it was about whatever. Variety of taco or intricacy that they were promoting that given month with a witty headline. And my first client was a British gentleman named Rudy, who was a lovely guy and kind of had to suffer through my inexperience, but combined with my enthusiasm. Yeah. And
do you remember going out to take a picture of it? That first poster.
I will have definitely taken a photograph of 100%. I can't even remember. I don't know. I stopped pretty early. Like I'm a bad record keeper of my own. Like I don't actually have the running joke among the people that I used to work with is like even now I'm still like, hey, do you still have that thing that I literally treat everything I do sort of like a piece of paper flung off the desk after I've completed the drawing type of situation. So.
That's really interesting because we had Dave Dye on, and you've spoken to Dave Dye. And Dave Dye is literally the complete opposite. So I sometimes say to Dave, hey, do you remember that thing that Tim Riley did for that bitter 15? And he go, yeah, I'll send it to you right now. And it's there. And then so whenever it's terrible things to say, but Dave knows this, but whenever we research, sometimes I think, if I just go on to Dave's podcast and just go and find, he is encyclopedic, that guy. So
Davepedia.
I did Dave's podcast, and I think it took so long to do because he was like, have you got those? Like if you ask Dave specifically about how long it took and just be like, what is David like at finding his work? How long did it take for him to get his work
he lays the blame at your door because he said David had an incredible way of how we could do the podcast, but then we couldn't do it. Or it said it was you had an idea of how to present it, and then it didn't come off or something. So you had to go and he said just promote it in a conventional manner. Does this ring a bell?
Yeah, no, because the thing about podcasts is you say things and then you forget things, or So the idea for my Dave Dye podcast, because it's quite long as well too.
Yeah,
and when he likes a really long chat, and you omit names that you should have given credit for, and you remember things that you after the fact. So my idea was to annotate, to do audio footnotes.
Oh.
The idea was we were going to record a follow-up conversation where I listened to the podcast and annotated the podcast as I listened, and I did.
Great.
Through the recording of it, but I feel like
great idea.
In the end, Dave and his editors it felt like it was probably too much work.
So is that when it's director's notes over the top of the movie? Okay,
exactly.
So that's a great idea. Yeah,
but because it was a time-wise a linear podcast, you'd have like a beep or something like that. It'd be like me coming in from the future and correcting or annotating what I'd said from the past, and then you go back to the past and then move through.
So it's shifting times, and also possibly the longest, like a sort of Apocalypse Now Redux length of.
It was yeah. It was.
All right.
Well, and as you say, Dave likes a long podcast. So with the notes, it may have been a 24-hour job, that one.
It was a lot.
There's an idea. Now that's a can entry next year, the 24-hour podcast. I'm sure it's okay. So look, David, we're going to move on to the work. 4 or 5 campaigns we're going to talk about. We're going to start of BBH, The Guardian, the whole picture. So just to say, you had an amazing time there. I'm not sure if our listeners know, but you did an incredible period there where you created the Three Little Piggies film, which I think won just about every single award that year. I think it was the most awarded campaign in the world. So you did numerous other campaigns we'll talk about in a minute. So, but am I right in saying you were a journalist before you're a copywriter? And if so, did that make your job running The Guardian slightly easier because you'd seen both sides of the fence? Is that right?
I mean, as a former journalist, I had more than a passing interest in the. Yeah, it was one of the first campaigns that I did where I was heavily invested in the product. Right. Honestly, at the time that the pitch came around, I was absolutely broken. It was 9-10 months into my tenure at BBH, and I was exhausted. Right. And I didn't have the capacity to do the pitch, but at the same time, I was like, I can't not do this pitch. And so I signed up for it, and it was,
It's really interesting because I've worked on a couple of things like that, the NHS and the BBC, where you inherently go an extra yard or more because you just can't help because you just know it. Whereas if I'm going to say the word yogurt again, sorry yogurts, because somehow
yogurt,
you're just not emotionally close to it. So I can imagine.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I'm currently working on yogurt now.
Sorry, yogurt.
No. But the interesting challenge there is I've got a team of people on their side who are very, very excited about yogurt, and they believe. This is my thing. Is it's like I'm excited about it as well too because they're interested in fundamentally changing the way that yogurt advertising is put out to the world. Yeah. And that's the thing is like whenever you have. People sometimes ask me, "What's your dream brand?" and to work on, and those are. I never think about advertising in those terms. No. I'm about individuals and what their ambitions are within the organization. Yeah, and currently, right now, yogurt is a huge preoccupation of mine, and I am very passionate about it because the right people are passionate about it alongside me.
I completely agree. I mean, go on, because so someone said to me, say. Do an advertising campaign for Man United, my favorite team. So I would probably absolutely shit myself because I'm so involved and invested in it. I might become kind of like a rabbit in the headlights. Whereas if you can...
Well, you try to play the client as well as the creative, right?
Whereas if you do have that gap, so now I'm going to do a counter argument to my NHS BBC thing, but if you have that gap, that makes it in some ways easier, right?
Which is why it was great. The Guardian was great because I was a failed journalist. So I had an intimate knowledge of the industry and a desire to do something good for it. And it was my favorite publication at the time.
Well, let's talk about the work. We're on slide 9, just so you reference. Well, you're obviously going to see it because it's the first of the posters. There's about, I don't know if I got them all, but there's about 4 or 5. So it's.
Oh, no, there was lots more. There was something like.
Shit.
It was like 20 in total.
I was going to ask, we'll ask you for them, but I clearly know you don't have them. But we'll find them.
Dave Dye's got them.
Dave Dye's got them.
Okay. So it was Carl and Pete, your team. So could you tell us a bit about this campaign, how it came about? You know, this they're wonderfully witty and well written, and you know the tone is great.
It's funny, well, because like the campaign, so much of the campaign was, and so much of the campaign's attention is centered on the Three Little Pigs film, which was a disproportionate amount of the energy was put towards how do we crack a way to articulate what Alan Rusbridger's concept of open journalism was. Right. In narrative form, how do we educate people? And the posters, which were never going to be able to do that job easily, were really, really hard. And I think there was at one point we looked at retelling of fairy tales, but everything just got a little bit complicated, and it was about taking a step back, really, as hackneyed industry jargon, number one comes out. Take a step back. Let's take a step back, and we looked at what the spirit of the message was, right, which was the fact that that anyone can influence a story, and a story can grow and change based on who's adding shade or color to it. Yeah, and did that instead of the fairy tales. So we decided that the line and the conceptual bent of the film would add as the connective tissue between the two campaigns. And so we just had to articulate that a lot of people were involved in the creation of a story. And so these Carl and Pete did great posters.
We've got to remember they're from a while back, and yet they look very modern. They sort of feel a bit googly, or how Google would do an ad now or recently, but this is quite some time ago. It's like 2013, I think. I'll just read one of the headlines. 2 journalists, 16 doctors, 4,362 sometime patients, and 1 man who has never been ill talk about the NHS reforms. It's really interesting, isn't it? And then the visuals of a pill, half red and half white. There's another one I like because I'm a Man United fan, and you already know this. 1 journalist, 262 City and 218 United fans, brackets, 12 of whom are actually from Manchester, close brackets, debate squeaky bum time. Just great, because it's so knowing. I know that you know that you're talking to me, on such a brilliant level. You just want to go and talk about. You just got to read that and find out. I'm obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a massive Guardian reader. So, I'm obviously going to be a big fan of this campaign. But they were very, very fresh, these, when they came out.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. And I think the thing I liked about them is what you said, they invite reading.
Yeah.
And the key here was to not overcomplicate them, and to present people with a simple representative visual that was a little bit clever. Sometimes you knew exactly what the image was. Other times you had to read the copy to work out what its significance was to the Guardian. But when you read the line, it was always rewarding. There was always a little bit of wit there too.
I'm wondering, after this, I'm thinking it might have gone to Wyden Kennedy, and Tony Davidson had done the more colourful stuff. What was that before?
No, it was Wyden first. And then
thank you.
We followed Wyden.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, well that's great. And that was Carl and Pete, wasn't it? Because I just wanted to give them a mention, because now one of them, I think it's, one of them's godfather to Louisa Silburn's child. I used to work with Louisa, and she always used to talk about one of the guys went to work at Apple.
That was Carl.
Thank you, Carl. Carl, if you're listening, full respect.
I believe Pete is at VCCP.
That's right.
Maybe, I don't know if my information's out of date, but yeah.
Okay.
So we were obviously looking through lots of your amazing work, and while you're at BBH, you also worked on Axe or Links.
Yes.
Okay. So the next campaign we'd love you to talk us through is the Anarchy campaign. We were talking about this the other day, and they're incredibly rewarding to look at, and they get more rewarding the more you look at them as well. Can you just talk us through the campaign and a couple of the posters, and give us a bit of background to how it came about?
Of course. Well, Axe would historically, they'd have a new variant every year. They'd launch a new spray, and Anarchy was I worked a very little bit at the tail end of Angels, but Anarchy was the first one that I CD'd it with Dom Goldman at the start.
Okay, Dom, yeah.
I don't know if you know Dom, lovely fellow, very, very talented. And the variant had already been set. So it had already been established that it was going to be Anarchy, and that there was going to be a version for him and for her, but the communication hadn't been made when I got there. So it was there conceptually, and it was named Anarchy. So we knew that there was going to be some form of pandemonium.
Yeah.
And there were a variety of different great campaigns that the myriad teams came up with. The brief was cast out to the agency, and lots of teams had a crack at it, as was often custom with the Axe brief, because it was a good win.
Yeah.
And then it was Daniel and Shimon were the team who are now, I feel like they're running Young von Matt in Germany somewhere.
Right.
I'm not sure where they're headquartered, but yeah, this was their
and did
brainchild.
they come in? Did they? I'm always fascinated at what point you saw it, because you look at the end, you look at the finished product, and you just go, oh yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's really funny. It's a moment in time. It's the moment before the moment. It's really clever. There's a narrative. There's a story.
Yeah.
Did that come in as that layout, or did you get to that?
Well, I mean, the conceptually it was very close, but it was brought to life by Jean-Yves Le Monde, who was
a photographer.
A photographer. Yeah.
Yes.
Did an incredible job and put more thought and consideration into these posters than I've ever seen.
Yes. Okay.
So would it be fair to say he added just that extra bit of craft to the image to make sure that the story was true to the original concept?
Absolutely, but it's like in a scientific way,
right?
Like the pops of red on the landscaper was he was like, we'll have pops of red because it will help you imagine the dog's head being cut off.
Right.
And that's deep. That's deep.
Did you? Because I'm interested, as well. Some campaigns, literally, a team writes it, draws it up, and you go, well, great, let's just give it to the photographer and, don't screw up the casting. Whereas on this one, did you get down there and had he done all of the work beforehand? So it's all very constructed, this graphic representation left and right, the kind of the latency that was there, the fireworks and the flame, the dog. And was it, I imagine he had done shitloads before. So once you got there, it was just forward a bit, back a bit. I mean, I don't know if you're on the shoot, but.
Oh no, it was very it was symbiotic. It was a back and forth, right. Definitely.
Okay.
It was yeah. I mean, nothing is done in absentia of our input. There's a granularity, but not in a control freaky sort of way. It's just fun to get into the details and to work on these things together. And I'm a big believer in everyone having a voice, but then there being authoritative voices who make the decisions.
There was something I did notice about it, and I don't know if I'm going to get this wrong, but we were talking to Shelley last week actually about Amazon Prime Video. Shows that stay with you. And there was something about that work where, again, it's a shot, it's a moment in time, but the whole story. There was something about that in this, isn't there? Because you go, how did the woman with the fireworks meet the guy who's the, the flame guy, and what happened before, during, and after? That's already going through your mind when you're looking at this
exact
stage. And that's a real art to produce that. Because quite often these concepts, you give them to the wrong photographer, and it just gets lost, and you're looking at it across the cross tracks and the underground going, they fucked that up. How did you choose the photographer out of interest? Did you know him from before, or did you just sense? We
were familiar with his work. Okay. I think it was a classic pitch, though. It was three photographers, and he just Jean-Yves was just such an expert. And was so detailed, and so it's just anytime you make a decision as to who you're going to work with, I don't particularly love pitching things out.
No,
it's not to directors, to photographers, to anything, because I believe it's the responsibility of the creative party who's authoring the work to understand how they want it put together. If you're the final voice, you should have a vision for how it comes together finally.
Yeah.
So I prefer to cast directors. I prefer to cast photographers. But sometimes you've got a concept and you're like, we've got it this far down the line, and we definitely need someone with more of a conceptual bent rather than just an executor.
Yeah.
To help us realize the vision, and this was the case. I mean, Daniel and Shimon, like I said, the difference, the symmetry between the Shimon's first drawings, scamps, were had a lot of this energy to them.
Yeah.
Jean-Yves was, but to say that, what is that? The old Haggerty quote: "Everything's 80% idea, 80% execution." The best work, or something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of importance.
But it's really interesting how process happens, because I remember when I was at Saatchi's under Droga, and the NSPCC cartoon commercial.
Yeah,
came, but it just came from a squiggle.
One of my absolute favorites.
Yeah, absolutely, wasn't it? It's just amazing, and it was on the side of Howard and Duncan's pad. Another team had actually got an ad nearly into production, and Droga said, "What's that?" And they said, "Oh, that would be like if someone was abusing a cartoon." And he said, "That's the idea." So they had to go and unsell the existing script and made cartoon, but it was from nothing. Whereas you say sometimes you get stuff so finished. And then it's a joy to just, noodle the kind of crafty bits. Anyway, like we've got to keep going. We're going to keep on the Axe vibe, because we're going to go to Peace now. So this was a new Axe piece, Make Love Not War. So Dan and I noticed, again, the same photographer. But a completely different spin on it. Do you want to just give us a quick précis of this campaign? Because it's very different.
Yeah. No, so weirdly, so as was the case, we had Apollo as well too.
The space one. We worked on that. That was great.
That came between.
What was the line again, David? Leave a man, come back.
Leave a man, come back a legend.
Yeah,
that was based on the idea that astronauts were the highest. In terms of aspiration, there's the blue collar fetish, which is pervasive in our culture still to this day. It's the emergency services, the rugged,
the firemen,
yeah, exactly. But the idea here was that space was not just the final frontier, but the last, the highest benchmark you could reach in terms of.
Did you do posters on those?
Yes, we did.
Okay, sorry, that's an oversight on our part.
They were okay. They weren't the best.
The bit that we got involved in for that campaign was a 40-foot spaceman hanging from the roof of Westfield shopping centre with a screen behind the visor, and you could upload a photo of your face to sit behind the visor. So then people got themselves a photo of them as an astronaut hanging from the Westfield Mall. Yeah, wow. It was ridiculous, but brilliant.
Yeah, no. So this is exactly as is most of Axe's work was frequently ridiculous and brilliant. But the piece was probably the next great posters.
Yeah, tell
and those were just the piece came from Rosie Arnold initially had pitched Axe piece and the line "Make Love Not War," and not dissimilar to the cartoon ad that you were talking about, the charity that anytime there's initials, I always mess it up. But we had another, we were far down the line. We were about to approve a spray. Yeah. A different, I can't remember what it was, but there was another one that was set to be sold through, go into production, labeling, all that kind of stuff. And I saw in a deck that Rosie had, it was a proactive initiative that she tried to sell them when she was on the account, which was Axe piece, Make Love Not War. And I was like, no, that's it. If we're doing another one, that's the one.
Yeah.
And so we built the campaign around that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It was a last minute. And so the posters were just your classic toy soldiers in a classic toy soldier landscape, but focused not on the act of fighting, but seduction.
It's brilliant. We Dan and I, we've had lots of people talk about 18 to 30 when Droga was at Saatchi's, and these kind of set pieces of beaches. This really reminded me of that.
Yeah. There's that feel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Of lots of mini stories pulling together into one big.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose yours is a little bit, because you can't be as rude as those posters were.
No.
There's sort of slightly more rewarding, the more subtle ones. There's quite a few gags I've just spotted in here. Was it a set piece, or was it a load of comps? How did you do this?
It was done and redone and redone. So it was a combination of the two.
Right.
It was done practically and set up as set pieces, but it was every chunk was retouched individually and then assembled afterwards.
It's reminding me a bit of those. I mean, obviously, I'm going to a highfalutin area, but the Chapman brothers, the
sure
things of hell. I just wonder if you ever made one of these and then you could sort of like, exhibit it somewhere, because it's so wonderfully detailed and meticulous, right?
Yeah, no, this was before the whole you could tour the components of a not that I'm equating this to Wes Anderson or anything, but of course when he started doing the animation and the stop motion animation, he'd tour the sets of the film, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
But
that is great. I mean, they're very rewarding. You can walk past it and go, oh yeah, I get that. Yeah, peace, war, love. And then you walk on. But then if you want to sit there and just enjoy it, that's what I love about this work. That quite a lot of it sort of stays with you. There's the resonance rather than just, advertising is traditionally quite throwaway, isn't it? But the best stuff stays with us. And we had
that debate, which is how complicated do we make it? And you get the idea when you see the poster, but there's lots of little bonbons for you to enjoy afterwards.
Well, that's what I was going to ask actually. So that obviously there are the obvious ones in there, but as we heard on the 18 to 30 stuff that we were talking about the other week, are there any hidden Easter eggs in there that we haven't spotted or you won't spot at first glance that you can tell us about? Is your face in there somewhere, or is there
no
hidden genitalia somewhere?
It's all on the page. We were very we're above board on this one. I don't think.
Actually, I was going to ask. I forgot. On Axe Anarchy, did you have any executions which weren't bought? I'm always interested in stuff that didn't make it.
No, weirdly, this was one of those classic. We had two, and we needed a third.
Right.
And we went through so many. As I'm remembering back, it was like it was a tight three.
Right.
Like there was no fourth, and the third was a struggle.
Okay, so we got to. Can I guess what the third was?
Yeah, sure.
Ah, bollocks. Because you see, I actually used to love the fireworks, and then I've just seen the strimmer, which has actually made me laugh more because I've got a little dog.
Right.
Dan, which is the one?
Let's have a look. So we got the strimmer,
the petrol, fireworks. Come on, David.
I'm going to go fireworks as the third.
I'm going to go dog.
Dog was the third.
There you go.
But
it's the first one.
Or was dog the third? I can't. So it's either flipped. So this is where my Swiss cheese memory comes into play. So fireworks was definitely 100%.
Yeah.
And then what I remember is, I think this is the way that it was the dog was the third, but I ended up being happier with that than I was with the petrol station. I think is where petrol station is my least favorite of the three.
Right.
But I remember with this, it was the one that was my least favorite actually wasn't my least favorite when they were produced.
That's interesting, isn't it? The one you think is going to be great, and then it's like,
Yeah. So I think it was fireworks and petrol station, and then the dog was the one that was hard to get to because it's a little less immediate, a little more conceptually complex. But in the end, I think the dog was probably my favorite.
Right. Okay. So look, Dan and I have had a little debate about the next two on the list, and technically we think they're both press ads, so we shouldn't talk about them.
Sure.
But
I think that the fact they are topical. We talked about kind of the beautiful things about out of home, and context is kind of obviously something that outdoor creative is famed for. Things happen, we react. Let's get it out on the streets. But I mean, talk us through the Maggie Mite first.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to dwell on it too much, but there was a lot of teams' names on it. Did they all run in at the same time and say, "We've got it, David"?
Well, no, I think what happened was it was two teams whose one of I think their partners were on holiday or something like that. Right. And so they teamed up and they came up with that.
That makes sense.
And then when their partners came back from their respective holidays, when something like that gets sold and starts going to production, you're not like, okay, go ahead, you have that. Yeah. You're like, no, we're a fucking team. We're all going to get credit and we're all going to do this together. Yeah. So in the end, it was it became a group effort.
That's a pretty good holiday. Come back and then you're looking at a can gold. Haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just briefly, the second one is the Fergie one as well.
Yes, an Observer had Sir Alex Ferguson retires, a sad day for English football. Martha Riley and Richard Glendenning.
Yeah.
Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the jinx that you put on my club. So we've won nothing. Virtually. So I'm laying it at your doors.
Yeah, sure.
It's a brilliant ad.
Thank you. This was literally one of those ones where it was just like there were probably more clever options to go with, but just wanted to go with the dumb joke for this one.
Oh no, but I wouldn't say it's an open goal, excuse the pun, but it is. This is how I'm now feeling about Pep Guardiola. Like, just go. My wife's a Man City fan, and I just this morning saw his little smiley face going, yeah, signed for another 2 or 3 years. It's like, oh, go away.
This was definitely a decision to make, to do something. I sometimes you do these things where you're like, okay, it's a topical ad, it's transient, it doesn't need to look nice. There were nicer looking alternatives on the table, I'm sure. But it was a decision to just go with something stupid and funny.
Do you must indulge? Do you have a favorite football team, or are you?
QPR.
QPR.
Good choice.
Wow, interesting. So Dan's Spurs and I'm United. We've both actually had a mini second of silence.
That's great. You don't find many QPR fans anyway. That's just
so okay.
I've got a couple of close friends who are QPR fans.
Really,
they're always seeking out each other.
Or you don't find many QPR fans who are happy to admit that it's
true.
QPR is there.
Very true.
Well, you're about to lose maybe lose your manager to Rangers because he was Steve. Oh, this is so sad. I know. Well, Steven Gerrard's right hand man up at Rangers, and then they're going to get him back. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, let's not dwell on that because
that's another podcast.
Yeah, forget that. Right. Okay. We're going to go to a place called Cold Drops Yard now.
Of course.
Droga 5. So just very quick background. So you went from BBH to Droga 5. What a brilliant move. You just put that place on the map. I'm sure there are many other people involved, obviously, but, I've followed your career and I've thought, wow, that, the work you did there was fucking amazing. Excuse my friend.
Oh, it was BBH to Widen and then Droga 5.
Okay, got that wrong.
That's all right.
Oh, you hate that, don't you?
Yeah.
When you get it wrong on the timeline.
Yeah, that's going to re-record that.
Do you want to start it over?
No. So David, I really want to leave it in.
So David, when you went from BBH, Wyden Kennedy, then Droga
to Droga 5.
Yeah. So listen, there's so much good work at Droga 5. But we want to obviously talk about billboards,
sure,
and out of home and the Cold Drops Yard work. I'm going to rip Dave Dye off just one more time, or just quote him because he says, David, or your work always causes us tingle, not a minty fresh mouth tingle, but a work fresh excitement tingle. So that's so true because I remember seeing these. I don't know about you, Dan, but it was like I couldn't categorize them. I couldn't work out what it was initially, but I was really, really excited and intrigued. And I kept saying to my missus, "Oh, what is that place? What are these colors and the shapes? I mean, where did that come from? What was going on?"
Well, it's this is all. Well, first of all, shout out to Chris Chapman.
Yes,
my former.
Yes, we featured him on our Instagram feed on this already, so we'll credit him again. Obviously,
he's such a lovely guy and such a brilliant talent. So, this was a wild card.
Really? Oh, I like a wild card.
So, I mean, I don't know if you followed your curiosity and actually went to Cold Drops Yard, but it's a haven for bougie restaurants and luxury boutiques, and so we had a couple of far more responsible options.
Right.
But when Chris prototyped this, and it was something in this neighborhood where there was this repeatable construct where you used the elements of the architecture to house all the elements of the individual shops and the people who shopped there, shot by everyone and illustrated by everyone and anyone who had anything to do with King's Cross creativity. It all just sort of came together.
It's just so fresh. I've said that word before about the work you're involved in. It just doesn't look like anything else, which is good, right? We want to be. We were talking with Shelley about.
It's bold, right? There's a boldness and attitude to it that it feels like it's rejecting what it should be, and it's standing out. And I think that's when you got a poster that can shout in someone's face, you've got that. You win, don't you?
And because it's been described as, I read somewhere like identity, but
visual identity,
yeah. But so did it go? I have been there, by the way. It's brilliant. I've been working recently in King's Cross, and when I go out there, it's cracking. You'd never believe what it was before, would you? What King's Cross was. It does reflect it, and did this work then permeate into the fabric of the area, or was it just on posters?
No. I think it was on. First it was on hoardings, wasn't it?
Yes.
But then it was. It actively found its way onto all the. When it's a visual ID rather than a series of posters, there's like mugs, umbrellas, all other type of ephemera. Yeah. But it was baked into the identity of the area. So
yeah, no, it's great. It's something. It looks great. We love it. Well, we talked to Chris actually, and we put a load of stuff up on Insta about a year ago on this. But it's good to hear about it from you.
Yeah. This is probably my favorite outdoor that I did. There's a lot of outdoor that I liked at Droga, but the Coal Drops Yard has a special place in my heart for that very reason. It's not like high concept, but it is so functional and utilitarian, but beautiful at the same time. It's that perfect. Everything I do I try and make it a very creative product demo. Yeah, in a way that's what it is.
It's funny because you could, like you say, you could have gone a much more functional route, a much more like classic route, with all the stuff there. But everyone's seen that a gazillion times, haven't they?
Yeah.
The actual area is in itself a subversive act because it was so different, or it is so different from what it was. I suppose you needed something to reflect that, right?
No, that's exactly right.
Huge impact.
And I think it did. I think it did. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Really big impact. So this is the last one we're talking about?
Yeah.
We might talk a bit more about Ocean Spray in a minute, but does this, I guess, mean we're going back in time to the Wieden & Kennedy times?
Yeah.
Sure.
To talk about Equinox.
Back to the future.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just doing that to wind you up, by the way, as we know.
I'll do my Christopher Lloyd. Marty, 1.1 gigawatts.
Actually, do you know what? That is a bit of a look for you.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Doc. So I didn't like that.
So we're talking about Equinox when you were at Weiden's, and I mean, we absolutely love the energy that we've got in these posters here. So Equinox is a gym brand, right?
Yeah, exactly. A gym / lifestyle brand. Yeah.
So talk us through the posters. I know you've got the deck in front of you. We're on page 27. So we've got the.
Of course, yeah. No, it's a series of straight-on portraits shot by Rankin of the results of what happened when you go to Equinox. Whether it's it's a lot of people doing crazy things because they're suffering from a fit of overconfidence.
I mean, I love it. The Equinox made me do it. First up is a fucking great line, but then some of the imagery, I love the guy with the radiator purely because I wish that was me. Obviously I'm never going to look like that. So it's the guy's basically naked and he's ripped a radiator off the wall, or is it an oil heater? What is it? I don't say.
It's a radiator. Yeah.
I mean, it's just madness in there, but I think I love the casting of Rankin as well. I've worked with Rankin, and he is like, if you want a fashion shoot, I mean, that's the first place you got to call. And we had him on about 2 year and a half ago, talking about so much stuff. And I think we touched upon this, but this must have been, how long ago did you do this? Was
like 2014,
right?
Probably.
Okay,
I guess.
And is
2014?
Because I know nothing about Equinox. Is it quite? Because you've shot this, it's basically like a fashion brand, right? But so if I go in Equinox, am I already going to be worrying how I'm looking? Is it quite? Yeah. Okay. So that is the kind of gym it is. Yeah.
Not to disparage. We all.
No.
The three of us are not Equinox customers.
Okay. I like the way you said that so confidently. It wasn't even a question.
I'm going to go and cancel my membership.
He actually looked. I could see David. David was looking at his screen a bit more down than me. Okay. Well, we're going to.
Do you know what I love about it though? Is that it's a lot like the way I feel about the two acts things. Is that your brain fills in the gaps with
exactly.
You are able to construct your own story from a single frame, and I think there's a.
Nice to let people read the story. Yeah,
there's a power to that, and for outdoors, I think it's really important for the everyday Joe, the audience, as they go around looking at posters, that they are. There's an entertainment value to these things if they're going to rise above the. Craig the lawyer stuff that we were talking about earlier on, that I can walk down the street and I can see that, or I can get on the tube and I can see that, and I can think about it more as I've gone past it and I'm not looking at it anymore. And I think that's what, the storyline based posters that we've looked at today all do that. So I think it's a kudos to great outdoor.
Yeah. It's wonderful. So we're going to finish on the work on a wiggle wiggle and a jiggle jiggle.
Yes, sir.
So these are. Did you just decide what came first? Obviously, did the film come first, and you had these fly poster things ready, or did you just put these up as a result of popularity? How did these? Because there's nothing on them apart from wiggle wiggle jiggle jiggle.
So they were a tease. So there are reveal billboards as well too, but the reveal billboards just have the QR code on them that send you to the link of I think it's jigglewiggle.com or jigglewiggle.com, which is the hub that houses all the holiday content for Ocean Spray.
And I presume they're kind of TikToking it up and doing all sorts of fun stuff for audience engagement as well on this. Yeah,
absolutely. There's bucket loads of stuff that we still have planned. I think we got a new. There's another fun thing about the campaign, which is going to be coming out either next week or the week after.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll be certain to feature that as we get the podcast up as well, because we love it. I showed everyone in the office today as well. I said, I'm talking to David, and this is one of the TV ads, and everyone was wetting themselves.
I don't know if you wrote it, David, or a journalist or something, but there's always a thing they're going, no more farmers. Like farmers going, hey, the cranberries looking good. And you're going, fuck, how many of those have we seen? And so I remember seeing this and the people sitting around the table. And what I love about the film is nothing happens at the beginning. Like every ad at the moment, people go, oh, what's some 3 seconds? What's going on? Tell me. And I'm like, this is just such great writing and filmmaking, isn't it? Because it's just proper.
That story arc.
Well, but it wasn't for this. It wasn't an indulgence. It was an integral part of the communication, like forcing people to sit in the silence and the boredom and beigeness of the holiday season before giving people a release is exactly what that's what the product was. Again, this is the thing is like anytime like you have a Thanksgiving meal, you have a Christmas meal, it's beige.
Yeah.
And cranberry sauce is always the pop of red that acts as a beacon of light in an otherwise gloomy holiday ritual.
One other question on it was, I picked it up today because I've watched it quite a few times. The sound in the background is very disturbing.
Yeah.
What is that? Because that's not a music track, or is it part of the music track? It's
Do you mean are you talking about the grandfather clock?
No, there's another sound that came. or something like that. It's really weird.
I think it's on the music track.
It's the music. Okay, it's the music.
That's the part of the music track by Matt Gowdy of Detroit Grand Poobahs.
Right. Okay. It's very good. Right. We better.
Yeah. We're about to hit time, but we have a couple more questions. We have our staple question, which is your favorite billboard of all time. Can be one of yours. Can be one of anyone's. It's like asking, your favorite family member sometimes, but it's
Now, I am a contrarian at heart. So what I was going to offer you is my favorite billboard of the last year, or of the last years, and also because I like to lift and celebrate the present stuff that's in the. It's just, to me, is so. And for me, the last photo for Calm from Adam and Eve, that is just. It's one of those things that it's like it's beyond. You move past jealousy to just awe and it's just perfect. I'm
glad you said that one, because we've talked about it last week, and it's come up a couple of times on the podcast, and that is, I agree, a phenomenal piece of outdoor.
It's just, when you look at something and you go, you just see it and you immediately go future legend.
Yeah.
So those will be, I don't know.
It's funny because you didn't think they could top Project 84. You think that is as a piece, and yet this boils actually all down to a very humble little picture and a line. And it actually just shows how powerful our industry can be, doesn't it? When you just go, suicide doesn't always look like suicide. I mean, Jesus.
And
just makes you think. And it just, everything just when everything falls into place, and it leaves a little bit to the imagination, but in working it out, you understand the point of the ad.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is just glorious.
We talked about it last week, so I won't go too in depth on it again, but the bravery of the families to hand over those photos to be used in advertising as well. There is a story behind every single one of those, and it's the story is now being told because the families have given up those photos.
Did Shelley talk about it as well?
Yeah.
Oh, Shelley and I have very similar taste, and I love Shelley.
Yeah. Her top was a bit more sparkly than your top.
Right.
Yeah, yours is that pajamas, or is it?
She's generally more of a positive person on the surface than I am. My default is like kind of curmudgeonly moaner, where she's sparklier, but really she's far darker than
I am. You know what? See, I was thinking that as the minute you started, she came in, she's so sparkly and lovely. Deep inside, there's obviously something. Something else.
Black is cool. Heart is black. She's a lovely person, but she definitely is far darker than she lets on at first.
Well, she was wearing something sparkly, and Hugh was kind of pre-warning me today that you might be wearing something equally crazy.
No.
I was told about a pink suit.
I put in zero effort.
I was told about a pink suit. That was the
I was telling Dan, I showed Dan your various wardrobe changes over the years. So the pink suit, then the grungy sort of black and white hoodie, and now we've gone a bit. There's a lot of different lights and shades on your look and feel. Is this?
It's just pajamas today? Pajamas.
That's good. I like it.
It's very good. So our final question just is about tips for great outdoor. You've obviously, we've been through some amazing work today. What's your number one tip, number two tip?
God, it's like when you say don't obey the rules, it sounds like, oh, he's just trying to be like crazy and punk. But there's a lot of rules people put in place for Billboard. It can only be 6 words. It can only be blah 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 blah. And some of the best work doesn't adhere to those rules. And so just don't be afraid to overcomplicate things or undercomplicate things, as long as it services the idea, and would be number one. And number two, if we're coming full circle, don't be afraid to just make something beautiful, put something beautiful into the world. It doesn't have to be witty or clever, or sometimes it can just be striking. And I think we would do ourselves a great service if I'm not saying we need to confuse people, but a beautifully crafted billboard that doesn't have a clever idea has as much value to it if it's truly executed with. It makes you feel and makes you aspire to own or use said product.
It's like the Marc Jacobs thing you were saying, wasn't it?
Exactly.
I think page one is just don't pollute the place, do something nice, But
I don't like to disparage work, but there's a campaign that's running right now in New York on the subway, but that is stunning visuals ruined by an attempt to crowbar in a concept, so that the copy on it is just like, oh, you didn't have to. It's just glorious visuals, and then the copy just ruins it. And it's like, if you just put the brand name up and let the thing be the thing. It looks a lot like cigarette advertising from the 80s.
Yeah.
Or a cigarette or alcohol advertising. Had a very silk cut Crown Royale vibe to it. And it was just ruined by copy.
That's that Hegarty thing where he used to say to us, out of restriction comes creativity. And like, actually that was the golden era for cigarette advertising, when you couldn't show the fags, you couldn't show them smoking. Suddenly, anyway, we could probably talk for hours more. Thank you so much for coming on. I know it's you're a busy man. It's Thanksgiving.
Yes, time to get the turkey in the oven, I think.
I'm in charge of Brussels sprouts. So.
Oh, hey.
Very British. Okay, David. Thank you, mate.
Thank you very much.
Sincere
pleasure. Take care. Thank you.
Wow. That was
good.
That was amazing. I knew that it was going to be quite long.
Hold on, if you're going to blow smoke up his ass, make sure he's actually left the team call.
Just do that. Press the thing on. Yeah, he's gone.
Can you still hear us?
We blew smoke live. We can blow smoke after. It was. I think knowing people who sort of know him, and having read about him and everything, you kind of going. It was great because he just was who he is, And I was ready for it. But yeah. I was wondering if he was still in bed. Well, because I'm in my sort of pajamas. Maybe he sort of read our minds.
Yeah, he's like, it's a holiday, and so that does date our podcast. We have recorded this on Thanksgiving Thursday. So many thanks to David for getting out of bed Eastern time and spending time with us rather than with the people that he probably should have been with making his Brussels sprouts. Yeah, well, he's a good man for it. And I think we could have gone on. Towards the end there, we were just getting really revved up. I think he's just a great, interesting person to talk to. But some of the Billboard stuff was just magical, The Equinox stuff I love. It's really
great.
Very smart.
We wouldn't get in there, would we?
I literally just cancelled my membership. I'm done. David told me not to go there anymore.
So look,
who said advertising doesn't work? Listen, please do continue to follow us on social. Hugh manages the Instagram, so just ping us, DM us, all the interesting stuff. Big thanks to Vicky Ross again, who's a previous guest on the show. She keeps tagging us in stuff on LinkedIn and on the Twitter, while we're all still on the Twitter. We can talk about that another time. And obviously another big thanks to our sponsor, Talon Outdoor, independent out-of-home specialists with creativity in-house as well. So do talk to them about production if you need to. But yeah, phenomenal people and a great big help to what we're doing here, which is talking about creative in the out-of-home space.
That was brilliant. It's like you didn't read that off a bit of paper. You just said that all naturally.
I pretty much have to say that in our pitches as well.
Is that the company song? Right, anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.